right, good evening, everybody. How you doing tonight? We're going to have a show. It's going to be about the death penalty. I have some great guests, and I'll let them introduce themselves. But every time we come on, we like to dedicate the show to some people of our community or in the state. First, it was going to be B.B. King. My mother used to play all of B.B. King's records, 7 kids, because mom had 7 kids, and you want to give them back, and all the things about B.B. King. But Joe Perkins, who was a great guy in our community, even though he was from Southbridge, he did a lot of great things. And Perk was the type of guy who was very smooth, just smooth, nice-looking guy, tall, handsome, and good mannerism. Always had a polite thing to say. So we'd like to send our condolences to the Perkins family. Perk was a great, great man. So tonight the show will be dedicated to Perkins and B.B. King. Again, I grew up with playing the music. My mother did. Also, B.B. King came to the Radisson Hotel. Hicks Anderson and Larry Carter brought B.B. King to the Radisson Hotel, and I worked the door, and I felt good. I got my mom tickets to see the show, and that night they had a snow blizzard.
Wow.
But people still came out. So again, we'd like to send our condolences to the Perkins family, and again, tonight's show is dedicated to B.B. King and Joe Perkinson. Also, I want to, before we get started, a couple of announcements. And I think the last time I was on, we talked about Rashid, all the great things that Rashid's doing to help Parks and Rec in West Center City. So right now, Rashid's having a ping pong tournament. I believe it's June the 8th. They're having a tennis tournament, and also they're having a chess tournament. And a lot of our kids really need to get into chess, because chess, it teaches kids how to solve problems and use their brains. So again, I mean, there is a ping pong tournament, a chess tournament, and a tennis tournament. And I believe that call Parks and Rec or call over Hicks Anderson, and you can get more information. And I know I'm a pretty good ping pong player, and I play tennis. And Rashid, he beat one of my best friends, who's David Shockley. Rashid beat him in tennis, so I like to revenge the loss. And I think I will. But again, Rashid's doing great things over at Parks and Rec, but they got a lot of great things for our kids this summer, and people need to get involved and get your kids involved in all these great things to keep them off the streets. But tonight, again, we're here about the death penalty, and I would like our guest to introduce herself, and we will start asking questions after they introduce themselves. Give a little history on who you are, what you do, and we'll go to the next guest. Okay?
I'm Bishop Morton's baby boy. Donald Morton, the director of the Complexities of Colors Agenda, which is a comprehensive approach to social decay that we rolled out at the beginning of this year in an effort to kind of answer some of our societal ills that take place. Obviously, there are numerous reasons for which we're seeing some of the decline that we're seeing, and so we developed an agenda to deal with that. And so it is our responsibility currently to effectuate that agenda and make sure that we are dealing with addressing some of our social decline. And in fact, one of the pillars of the agenda deals with this whole issue around criminal justice, and one of the things that that particular pillar called for is an end to the death penalty. So thank you for having me to be able to discuss it.
Okay. Also, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm Jack and Fran Flaherty's third child out of 6. Born and raised in Wilmington, graduated in 1968, P.S. DuPont. Some of my younger classmates were Dennis Williams, Charles Potter, the whole Potter family went there. Calvin went there, Calvin Brown, little kids and everything. You mentioned ping pong, and it's interesting that ping pong was used to open up the diplomatic channel to the Chinese back in 1971. Remember that ping pong tournament they had back then?
Yes.
So there's a method to their madness back then. And what was the other thing you mentioned? Oh, the chess tournament. Andrew Suris, who's very active in the death penalty repeal bill, is the 2014 state chess champion. He lives 9th and Scott Street. So he's good.
And that's, again, And you're better than me because my mom used to always call me her baby boy. I always say I'm the youngest. So you know you.
I'm her baby boy. I'm a mama's boy, man.
Okay. Well, I'm the youngest.
Yes, sir.
But tonight, again, I have these two young men are scholars in my book, and they've both done great things in our community. And I'm gonna ask them some questions, and we're gonna go back and forth. But one of the first things I want people to know that Delaware in 1986 people used to be executed by hanging. And the last person who was hung in Delaware, the inmate, it was in 1996 1996 in January. The guy's name was Bill Bailey. He was hung, and then in 86, they went to lethal injection. And the last person who was executed by lethal injection, it was Shannon Johnson. That was April 20th, 2012. So they went from hanging to lethal injection. And I want both of you guys' opinion on this.
Well, I think one of the things that historically has been missed about Delaware in particular is the fact that Delaware is not always known, but has always been a southern state. So it has some consistency with the ethos of other southern states around Jim Crow laws and particularly hangings and those kinds of things. And so we are seeing in Delaware, which is also historical, Delaware was one of the last 3 states to be able to deal with the end of slavery after slavery had already taken place, right? So we're seeing today Delaware slow to adjust its justice system to be more fair, more equitable across the board. And so whether it's lethal injection, whether it's hanging, whether it's the electric chair, doesn't matter to me. There's a Latin phrase called imago Dei, that everyone is made in the image of God. Everybody's human. And the text, obviously I'm a Christian. The text says, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. I don't own the right to take away anyone's life any more than I have given life to anyone. And so I am vehemently opposed to any capital punishment, and particularly the death penalty in Delaware.
What's your views on the same thing that you said?
I'm opposed to the death penalty, and Dr. Morton talked about the Civil War and Delaware being one of the remaining states. Back in February of 1861, there was a debate in the Delaware State Legislature. There was a proposal that was submitted in Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, called the Emancipation Proclamation, Compensation Emancipation Proclamation. Every African American in Delaware above the age of 21 was going to be freed if Delaware would pass a law and the landowners would be compensated. The bill was defeated by 1 vote. And Delaware could have been on the cutting edge and maybe even stopped the Civil War. But Dr. Hurley talked about that a few years ago. I went to a lecture. Senate Bill 40 is the bill in the Delaware legislature to repeal the death penalty. It passed the Senate 11-9. Last time it passed the Senate last year 11-10. There were 4 Democrats that voted against it and 3 Republicans that voted for it. So it has bipartisan support and opposition. So Senator Karen Peterson is the sponsor and the leader. Dr. Morton, Complexities of Color, many others have had rallies in Dover. And I think that helped propel this bill out of the Senate and where it's now in the House Judiciary Committee. And a hearing was held the other day for 3 hours, and the vote was 6-5 to keep it in committee.
Okay.
So that's where we are right now.
Okay, that's another thing. We were definitely going to get to that, but I just want to give people a little history. Right now, there's 19 people on death row from the website. 15 people are listed all male. There's 12. Right now, this is going to be something for another show, but I want the audience, the viewing audience, to understand this. There's 15 people on death row. They say 9 are African American, 3 are Caucasian. There's an 80%, and 3 are Hispanics. But if you go on the website, the Hispanics are considered Caucasians. And I've always heard that different races, Asians and all that, the Census Bureau, are are Caucasians, and I don't know if that's to keep the population, but if you go on there on the prison website, the guy is Hispanic, got a fro, everything, but they have him listed as Caucasian. And again, so I think these numbers might even be higher, but that's for another show to talk about how they list people, black or white, or by your ethnic group. But other than African American, everybody else is listed as Caucasians. So right now we have 80% of the people on death row are African Americans and convicted of first degree murder. What's your thoughts on this, both of y'all?
Well, before we get to capital punishment, I think it's interesting that I knew Clarence Roach. I don't know if you guys knew Clarence. He was the last guy who was whipped in Delaware, 1946. You remember the whipping post? We didn't outlaw that till the late 40s. Clarence was a personal friend of Mayor Jim Baker. I got to know him. And so Delaware has been behind the curve, to say the least. I'm opposed to the death penalty. The Bible says thou shalt not kill, and that's good enough for me. So a lot of people say, well, it doesn't mean that. It means thou shalt not murder. Well, there really isn't any asterisk on the 10 Commandments, the tablets. It just says thou shalt not kill, and I think that's what God directed, and I think that's what we should do. Live our lives like that.
Can I, again, I'm more of a spiritual person, so Pastor, you can help me with this. Okay, the Delaware's, I think, a Bible state, but it says an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Take a personal life, and yours should be taken. I think that's Matthew 5:38. Explain that to me. Because everybody's quoting the Bible.
Is an Old Testament text where the Jews attempted to have some sense of equality around punishment that fits the crime. Jesus shows up, though, as a revolutionary in the New Testament and says to a woman who was sentenced to capital execution because she had been convicted of sleeping with a man that wasn't her husband, right? And the text says Jesus kneels down on the ground and said, "He who is without sin cast the first stone." She was sentenced to die because of her crime. Jesus gets rid of the death penalty in that case. So Jesus comes to establish a different way of thinking as it relates to those kinds of issues. And what I want to say, obviously, those of us, whether Christian or otherwise, right? All of us understand the deep morality that is involved with executing a human life. I don't think there's any debate in that area. There are some who would use the text, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But at the end of the day, there are a number of different reasons for which the death penalty needs to be abolished that go beyond the deep moral convictions that all of us have on both sides of the fence. The death penalty is innately and inherently without equality, right? Anytime you have 73 to 80% of individuals that are on death row, black and brown individuals, there's an issue with that. All across the nation, there's this call, this growing chorus of voices for Black Lives to Matter.
Okay, but let me. Okay, and I hear what you're saying. So what you're saying that because you think it's, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, because you think it's not fair across the board.
It's not fair.
Okay, but if it was fair, how would you feel?
It's not fair.
No, okay.
So
wait a minute,
no. I mean.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, again, and I'm just devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if it's fair, what do you think then? Okay, if we clean it up, okay, and we make it, everybody gets treated the same way, as far as not African Americans but more convicted. If everybody's treated the same way and it's fair, then what?
It's still a deeply immoral issue. You can't escape not just the inequality of the application of the death penalty, but the system is fundamentally flawed. There is the arrogance some would suggest of our state legislator to suggest that Delaware is the only state in the union that gets it right. We never get it wrong. We never convict anybody falsely. We never sentence anyone falsely. We never kill anyone falsely. That's the arrogance of our state, and that is a direct quote. There is an individual in our state legislature that says Delaware always gets it right, and we know that that's not.
You want to share a name, or you?
I don't want to share a name.
Let me also too. Let me.
Well, to your earlier point, that was an Old Testament quote you gave. So, to those who believe that the Bible is inerrant or without error, I'm not going to get into that argument, but the quote from the Old Testament is countered by a quote from the New Testament.
So
turn the other cheek.
Okay, now.
So again, I would say I don't care if it's fair or unfair. I'm against it. Period.
So again, and also I want people, once we do go to the phones, if you got victims out there, please call it once we get there. But my point now, again, I'm a spiritual guy. So you got one part of the Bible saying, the Old Testament saying, okay, it's okay.
It says one thing, the New Testament says something else.
So
some people say there's no contradiction there. I think there is.
There's definitely a contradiction. And
Jesus said, turn the other cheek. And that's, the Christians live by the New Testament. The Old Testament, first 5 books of the Torah, is a Jewish, book, but there are definite contradictions there.
Well, how do we handle the contradiction?
Well, here's the other deal. I have several friends that are rabbis, right? Mm-hmm. And here's what they will tell you, that a very surface reading of the text would suggest one thing. A deeper understanding of the laws behind what we see and what we read are an entirely different thing. There were many different steps before you got to the place of capital punishment in the Old Testament that we don't ever abide by in America. We're looking through a Eurocentric lens, a westernized lens with regard to the text, and any Eurocentric westernized view or lens through which we look at the text is always going to do the text a tremendous disservice. So there are rabbis that will tell you that the application of the death penalty, even in the Old Testament, there were a number of different steps and stages that you had to prove beyond any reasonable doubt, and we don't have that in America. We simply don't have that.
Well, at least one thing we know that there's quoted in the Bible on both sides that it's good, it's okay, one say it's not. But
well, let me say this, Julius. There's only one example in the Old Testament where God actually met a human being. That's on Mount Moses when he physically got the 10 Commandments from God. Okay. And it says, "Thou shalt not kill." Period.
Okay. And like I said again, I need to do some more studying because I got something to say, but
okay.
I'm not going to say it. But okay, I want of you in the audience to know that Delaware per capita is ranked the highest, is number 1 in death penalty in the USA. Delaware ranks number 1 in execution in the USA. What do you guys think about that?
Delaware is a part of a nation who is execution happy. I love my country. I love my country enough to challenge my country. And America finds itself within the company of Iraq, Iran, Somalia, places like that that are executing people at alarming rates. And while we have what we call a civilized country and nation, I don't understand why we find ourselves within the company of individuals that are not, within our terms, so civilized. And so we have to kind of really take a look at ourselves with regard to the company that we're keeping and the ways in which we are connected to those particular ideologies and change something about the way we do business in America.
And this one is for you too, Pastor. Okay, Apostle Paul was a criminal. He turned his life around. He changed, he got second chance, and all of us are not imperfect. What's your views on that?
Absolutely, all of us are imperfect. All of us are flawed, deeply flawed individuals, and no matter what it looks like. As a matter of fact, let me just say this: I sat in both the Senate and the House, and I listened to the arguments on both sides. And I will tell you from my perspective that there is no substantive argument factually on the other side. There is emotional arguments on the other side, and I have to allow for that. I have to understand that. But when it comes to the facts of whether or not we need to repeal the death penalty, the facts are incredibly clear. You can't dispute the facts. And whether or not someone has lost a loved one to a violent act, I would have to understand the deep emotional scarring that comes with that, right? So I'm not here to debate that. But what I am saying is we have a system that is fundamentally flawed, and there is no way to make the system perfect. So the argument ends at the fact that unless you are willing to execute one innocent person that you find innocent later on, which we have done in this nation, then we have a challenge on our hands.
Okay.
We're talking religion, we might as well bring up Jesus. He was convicted of a capital crime and executed, and he was innocent. So,
You won't hear no debate about me on that one.
all right.
But
I didn't think you would. So.
Nah. Now, okay, far as the studies show that it's more expensive to keep somebody on death row. I think in California, the cost is over 5 years. If they abolish the death penalty, it would save over $1 billion. I think people are paying $90,000 more per person, people on the death penalty. So there's a big cost in that too.
And our conservative brothers and sisters would agree with the argument, right? Those that are true to being fiscal conservatives would agree to the fact that it costs more. I don't know what the numbers are specifically, but I will tell you that it costs more
100,000.
because appeal after appeal after appeal after appeal, there is no finality with those that remain on death row in comparison or juxtaposed to individuals that are given life in prison. And by the way, at the end of the day, both of them are the death penalty, because a person is ultimately going to die in prison. It's just the timing in which they are going to die is at issue.
And there's a lot of conservatives that are opposed to death penalty. In the state of Texas, when George Bush was governor, Pat Robertson, the evangelist, appealed to then Governor George Bush to release, I think her name was Carla Faye Tucker. She was convicted of a capital crime and converted, had a conversion in prison, and became an evangelical Christian. And their conservative churches were urging then Governor Bush to not to execute her, and he did not adhere to that. He did execute her.
Also, too, I talked to State Representative Charles Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just say this first. Like you said, it passed in the Senate 11-9, and it was defeated in the committee in the House 6-5. Supporters who released it from the committee was J.J. Johnson, Charles Potter, Melanie George, Gerald Brady, and Sean Lynn. But what I'm hearing tomorrow, there's going to be, this is breaking news, tomorrow there's going to be amendment, and it's going to be if you kill a correction officer in the line of duty, and or if you kill a police officer in the line of duty, and that, so they're going to bring the bill back up again tomorrow, again, and I believe it's going to be let out of the committee. But these are the two things that they want to happen. If you kill a correctional officer in the line of duty, or if you kill a police officer in the line of duty. So I guess maybe that's meeting people halfway about the death penalty, to repeal the death penalty. So they want to repeal it, but these are the two conditions that they want on this amendment. And Charles Potter is introducing the bill tomorrow, which Charles has been doing a lot of work for a young fellow.
So let me celebrate Charles Potter. I think he's doing a yeoman's job.
State Rep Charles Potter,
Yes,
sorry.
yes. He's doing a yeoman's job down in Dover.
Charles Potter Jr.
What I'm careful of is creating another protected class. When we start talking about the facts again of the death penalty, there is no fact that suggests that individuals that are sentenced to life in prison are any more dangerous to correctional officers than those that, it's just not there. There's no data for that, right? When we start talking about police officers, again, we're creating another protected class. So there cannot be one sect and group of individuals that are protected and then everybody else is not protected. You can't create those different classes. Everybody, when we began the conversation tonight, we talked about equality. Everybody should be protected. So you can't just, my personal lens, I would have an issue, and I understand how politics works, right? You got to meet somewhere in the middle, you got to compromise, I get it. But what I'm careful of is not to sanction that police officers' lives matter more than any other life. Everybody's life matters, and African American African Americans in particular have to inject themselves into the conversation of all lives matter by continuing to declare that Black lives matter. You don't have to do that. My dear brother doesn't have to do that. He's a white male, right? He comes with privilege. That's just the way that it is. That's the way our country is set up. So we have to make sure that we don't value the lives of police officers more than we value the lives of anybody else. That is my only challenge with what Representative Potter would suggest. And I understand what he is attempting to do, but I would have issue with another protected class.
I want you to say something, and then I want to go to the B.B. King tape and then come back, and we'll continue. Then we'll start taking phone calls. So, all right, thank you. And the thrill is not gone. It might be delayed, but it's not gone. But also, too, I want Ivan to put the number up there for calls. But one of the things I want to talk about that's very important, and if I ever get a lot of money, one of the things I want to donate the money to is the Innocent Project. And the Innocent Project is where they get a lot of people out of jail who's been in jail of things that they didn't do. And I'm gonna give you an example. 329 people of DNA was exonerated. 329 people. But the sad part is the average served over 14 years before they was proven innocent. And Delaware, this is the part where Delaware definitely needs to change the law. If you have been in jail, incarcerated, and you found to be innocent, Delaware is one of the only states that doesn't have compensation for you. That is sad. So they take the best days of your life and they do not compensate you for it. I was watching this guy the other day, he did 29 years. And the person who was out there killed a couple people, but the DNA got him off. And this guy's doing great things. They had one guy who, a week before, the guy came through and told the truth, who was in prison, and told him how it happened and everything, and they tested DNA, proved that they had the wrong man.
Yeah.
So a lot of other people get killed when they get it wrong. And sometimes it's purposely done because it's more about the conviction of the prosecutors getting the promotions about the lives of innocent people.
Absolutely.
And again, that's something people need to work on. I would like to see the work on getting, can you tell Ivan, put the number up so people can call, please? But that's something they need to work on about getting that compensation law. Because if you've been proven innocent, you did 10 or 12 years,
Absolutely.
you come out with nothing.
But again, the underlying current of that is the system is fundamentally flawed. It's flawed. So imagine an individual who is not in prison, all right, as a result of a crime, and then they find out that he is innocent of that crime after you've already killed him. So the system is flawed, and anytime there is anyone who loses their lives, black or brown or white, there's a problem when the system's flawed.
Hello, you on the air?
Yeah, thank you, Julius. This is Pastor D. I want to talk about the death penalty, having lived on death row in the state of Delaware. However, as a preacher, and for the benefit of your listeners, I want to clear something up. The fact of the matter is, God never contradicts himself, and the Bible is not contradicting itself. When you see in the Old Testament, it's an eye for an eye. That was what we call the law. Those of us who studied know that God wanted the people to live under the law. But then when Jesus came in the New Testament, he said, I am the fulfillment of the law. That law is not necessary because I'm here and I am instituting what we call grace. So and on another show, you might want to have, some bigger laws that can explain it to the people exactly so they will understand that the Bible doesn't contradict it.
I appreciate it, and again, that's why we have call-ins, because again, but I appreciate it, and we definitely would take that into consideration. But thank you, Pastor D. Thank you.
The death penalty. Hello?
I'm here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. The death penalty. Julius, I was there with the execution of Bill Bailey. I cellmated with him. I was next to Red Dog. I actually typed up the where he says he doesn't want a chaplain before he was executed. Hamid from Chester, I was on death row when he was executed, and Mr. Deputy. So let me give you a look at Delaware's death penalty and why it's both psychologically damaging and legally damaging to the individual.
Hey, Pastor, I hear you. Can you get to the question? I want to take some more calls. Go ahead. I'm listening.
All right.
What's your question?
You said you talked about the death row as in comparison to other states. Actually, Delaware's death row is not like other states, because you have people who don't even have a death sentence who are living on death row like I did. And so they go into a trailer the night before. All of that is psychologically damaging when you got one person assigned to death and another person in a cell next to them that's not. But the bottom line is, as you have alluded to, is the imbalance in the system that makes it unfair. It's just not applied fairly.
Okay. Thank you, thank you, Pastor D. And we'll have a conversation on that. Thank you. Okay. Any guys?
I knew I'd get in trouble by saying that.
This is dialogue. This is what you want. You want to have dialogue.
I mean, the New Testament says turn the other cheek. The Old Testament says eye for an eye. But it also says thou shalt not kill on the Ten Commandments.
Hello, you on the air.
Hi, is this Julius, State Rep Potter? How you doing?
How you doing, Charles? State Rep, I'm sorry, how you doing, Charles Potter Jr.?
I wanted to call in to quickly clear something up, that the idea of excluding the police was already an idea out there.
Absolutely.
But the reason for that amendment is because right now, as the death penalty has been debated for at least the last 3 years, people are still dying, okay? Some innocent people. So my understanding is it's more important for me to make sure that innocent people are not dying, and if there's an exclusion that will make that happen, which is the one you just discussed, we believe we can get that out of committee and have additional discussion on the floor. So that's most important. So you have to decide what's more important. I supported the death penalty, the repeal.
Absolutely.
Exactly the way it was.
Absolutely.
If anybody was there, Reverend Morton was there.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to go that way, but it didn't happen. We have been unable to get that out of committee all these years. So you have to make sure and decide which way you want to have it. Save the lives or continue to fight it year after year, and more people die. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Agreed. And let me kind of answer that, because he's absolutely right. And that's why I began the conversation by saying you have to celebrate brothers like Representative Potter. My issue, again, and he's right, we have to make some fundamental decisions about what we do in this moment and whether or not we allow it to release from committee, and then have a further conversation in a broader spectrum of individuals in the House.
Hello, you're on the air. Hold on for 1 second.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to say something about another great man. Attorney Sam Guy put a resolution in 2000 to stop death, to study it, to find out the inequalities that a lot of people already know that's going on. And Sam put that in 2000. You can go on Sam Guy's website, and he tried to get them to look into it back then. And again, so people were out there working on trying to get things done. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You on the air?
Yeah, my name is Alfonso Scott. I had spent 16 years down there in DCC. I lived through 2 executions. The thing I have a problem with the death penalty is you got imperfect people making a final judgment.
Absolutely.
On death. Death is final. And I think God, I agree with the brother on your panel that only God can make that decision.
Right.
So, and then there's mercy, there's grace. Where's the forgiveness? No excuse for heinous crimes and stuff like that. But when you judge someone to the death penalty, you give them no leeway to make change. You got people down Smyrna who committed
very good point.
A crime at 15, and they're still down there at 55, and they've changed and made changes. And now, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't do the same thing at 15.
Let me ask a question again. I have no position on this, but again, as the host and as advocate, What about people who you took my life, who had mercy on them? What about that?
Well, they resort to the Bible, talking about eye for eye.
No, I'm answering, but I'm asking you a question that, again, you're saying mercy. What about if I'm God, forgive anything ever happened to me or anybody, period, and I'm begging for my life, telling somebody, please, don't take me out of here.
Right.
Who's giving me mercy?
Well, the death penalty is based on, like you said, Old Testament Bible. Now, really, when somebody commits a crime against a person like murder, the death penalty is for that family member, the next of kin, to judge that person who did that crime, not for the state to take it and do what they want, because now they take it out of the hands of the family, and you can't, you can't, we call it, you can't feel better about the state killing the person. It's supposed to be the family. Now, like I said, being Pastor D said Jesus came and then grace and mercy came, death penalty should be done away with, because we are all imperfect. We all make mistakes. We can't judge someone to death. That's why I'm just against the death penalty. That's all, brother.
All right, no, I appreciate the conversation, brother. I really appreciate it. And thank you.
I like your show too. Keep up the good work you're doing down at the port.
All right, thank you so much.
All right.
Okay.
You can't dispute what the brother says.
No, again.
Not you.
Okay.
I'm saying you as in a general statement. We can't dispute what the brother
Jesus
says.
was executed, and every apostle was executed except
Hello?
for Apostle John.
You on the air?
I enjoyed great show. I had a question for the panel, and that's the Boston Marathon bomber was sentenced to death this week. He killed 3 people and he injured 260. He's only 21 years of age, and they say that he was influenced by his older brother. So in this case, would you agree that his life should have been taken from him? He was sentenced to death. Thank you.
All right. What I would say, again, I think the families and the people involved need to be involved. And, that would be my discussion. Both of y'all answer that.
Every major industrial country has outlawed capital punishment except for the United States. In this particular case here, that was a federal crime. Not only did people on the parade route die, and many hundreds were injured, but he killed his own brother. He ran his brother over and killed him.
But he was trying to kill a police officer, and
whatever his motive was, he killed his brother. He ran him over. But I think he should spend the rest of his life in jail.
Okay. You on the air?
Yeah, I just want to just make a statement, man. Two wrongs don't make it right, man. I'm a person that was incarcerated before myself, man, and I know, life is life. That's, it's not no picnic for a person doing life, man. You know what I mean? They serve a life sentence, man. They can't go to the refrigerator when they want to. It's real cold, man. So, 2 wrongs don't make it right, man.
Okay, thank you so much.
Micah chapter 6, verse 8 says, what does the Lord require of us? That we do justice, we love mercy, and we walk humbly with God. You can pick apart any one of those 3 things involved in verse 8, and every one of them do away with the death penalty.
They just hung up. Call back. Okay, go ahead.
So I think we have to have a very serious debate and dialogue. We can talk about theology all day. I can do that till the cows come home, and never miss a beat. But at the end of the day, it is not just a theological issue. It is a civil issue, and whether or not there's a fundamental flaw in the application of the system. You cannot get away from the fact that we are still today executing innocent people.
Okay. You on the air?
Hey, Joyce, this is your cousin.
Hey, cousin.
Our grandfather's a real religious person and stuff. And,
don't put a business out there.
all right. All I'm saying that a lot of people that claim that they know the law, they're not practicing law. And so we need a new form of government, especially in Delaware. Delaware needs to become a commonwealth, and we need elected judges in. And there's a lot of things that law had to be dealt with because they're not fair. One question, fair question, have you ever heard of any white man getting the electric chair or death sentence for killing a black man? I never heard of that anywhere in the nation. Can you tell me if you ever heard of that?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I'll make sure I look it up and see. I'll definitely make sure I look it up and see.
I think everybody should look that up because that's an issue. Because I asked a whole lot of people this question: have you ever heard of a white man getting a death penalty for killing a black man? That's important. Thank you, cuz.
Okay, no problem.
And I think at the very root of his question is this sense, and these are the facts, that if I kill my brother, then I am far more likely, 8 times more likely to receive the death penalty than if I kill you. Right, because there is a value placed on white life that is very, very different than the value placed on black life. So what your cousin just said is absolutely accurate, and we have to face these different disparities that exist in our nation, particularly in Delaware, if we're to make these kinds of decisions.
I do want to say, this won't be the show for it, but I want to say that there needs to be a show of discussion. And I'm going to give you a good example. In Pennsylvania, 6 months ago, the guy killed a state trooper, and he shot 2 state troopers, killed 1. They went and tracked him. He had a shotgun, but they didn't kill him. And I watched the news. They kept on calling this guy a man, while they was hunting him. But yet, he never was killed. Now, we got a guy who gets stopped for child support. This guy ran a 100-yard dash in 10 minutes. He was shot 8 times.
Absolutely.
Now, if anybody should have been killed, it was a guy who shot 2 police officers and killed 1.
Absolutely.
A guy stopped for child support. And I listened to the thing in Baltimore where the mayor and them called the rioters thugs. But when a man killed a police officer of another race, they still gave him the respect as a man.
Of course.
So I agree with you. There's some things, but that's the topic for another show. But again, I think that, but the question today is, I'm looking at it, is the death penalty fair if it's across the board fair? That's what my thing is, not about blacks getting treated worse than whites. If everything is equal, should the death penalty be there? That's what I want
to take a human life. That does not belong to us. I did not give anyone life. I don't have the responsibility or right to take anybody's life. Fair, equal across the board or not, which is a hypothetical situation and scenario, but no one has the right to take a life any more than the person who murdered someone had that right. We don't then correct that by murdering the one who just murdered.
Well, they say the governor from Maryland says that he's against the death penalty because it killing people doesn't reduce the crime.
It doesn't.
It doesn't deter the death penalty. Right. So
it doesn't. And in fact, Maryland has repealed. The state of Pennsylvania governor, the new governor in Pennsylvania, set a moratorium. So all of our surrounding states are doing the right thing. I really hope that Delaware would live up to its name of being the first state and do something right as it relates to the death penalty.
And something again I want to say, and this is again a little bit off the subject, but when police officers unions protect their members, unions period protect their members, whether they're innocent or guilty.
Sure.
And I want people to understand sometimes it's not racial. That's what the unions do. If you're paying union dues, and my job is not to convict my member, I'm there to protect you. And so a lot of times when you see the union, police officers unions come, that's what they're supposed to do.
They're doing what they're supposed to do.
You know what I mean? That's what, and I'm just telling you up that the people out there from a union perspective. And I've been a union president almost 30 years, whatever, something like that. But that's what they do.
Sure.
And so when you see the police officers union, that's their job, is to look after their members. And like a lot of my guys, I know they're dead wrong, and I cuss them out and when I go in front of management,
You're gonna represent them.
I'm gonna represent them, and that's so again, and I want people to understand that, and all unions should be doing that. Amen. Hello, you on the air?
Yes. I wanted to ask Pastor Morton a question.
He's
Saying
listening.
that you don't have a right to take a life. If somebody's using lethal force against a person, and you're standing there, are you saying that that person that's watching that don't have the right to defend that other person by using lethal force?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
Say it one more time a little bit. He's saying if me and you are fighting, you beat me up.
No.
That's not what you're
I'm
saying?
not beating you up. I'm killing you. I'm using a weapon that
Okay.
ends your life. And Morton is standing there. He's saying he's just going to stand there and watch.
Okay, I'll let him answer the question, okay?
Thank you for your question. I am a man of principle. It is not my right to take anybody's life, particularly. Now we have self-defense laws. We have all of those kinds of things, and I get that. What we're talking about here is state-sponsored homicide. There's a difference between me protecting myself and you dying as a result of combat, and state-sponsored homicide, which is someone's convicted of a crime, they murdered somebody, and then by jury of our peers, which by the way is never a jury of our peers, right, has this right to execute an individual's life. I just don't believe in that. So hopefully I answered the brother's question. I think there's a difference between the two scenarios.
John, anything?
Well, the movie High Noon was about that. Gary Cooper was the sheriff. Bad guys were coming to get him. His wife was a Quaker. She wanted him to leave. He went back and fought it out. Now, in that case there, there's a real dilemma. I think that's what he was talking about. If you're confronted by somebody with a gun, you have a right to shoot and defend yourself. Well, that's, I think, a different scenario than...
It is a different
Yeah, I think if you're confronted with a gun, you better run. But
We're talking about the difference between protecting oneself and revenge. The death penalty is nothing more than revenge. It is our attempt to avenge a scenario that has happened to one of ours that we love. And the state has determined its right, sanctioned its right to do so. And I vehemently oppose its right to do so.
now let me ask the question, and this is to both of y'all. Do you believe that when people get more involved, things to get done? And I give you a good example. The lady, the state prosecutor, she ran. She told everybody she was going to be there to help the people. That vote counted. Your vote do count, but a lot of times when we elect people, we stop once we elect them. Your job don't start until they get elected. We have to hold people accountable, and I tell everybody all the time. I watch my mother now. People who organize get things done.
Absolutely.
And it's not always race. We tend to vote and leave. Make them do what they said they was going to do. And like I said again, you guys been going down there. Y'all been getting things done.
Yes.
And that's what needs to happen. If you want change, if you want things to get done, organize and get involved. And again, you guys are doing great work.
Let me say something to that. I think even what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, right, what happened in other urban spaces, it's important to recognize that they've translated that kind of anger to the polls, right? And there were 3 newly elected African-American persons now on city council and other spaces. So as it relates to the complexities of color's agenda, we're making sure that we, to your point, which I think is a brilliant one, that we not just elect individuals, but that we also hold them accountable by producing report cards that look at whether or not they did what they said they were going to do. And regardless of color, regardless of race, if you are not doing what you said you were going to do, we're going to find a new candidate that will.
And that's what we need to do. Barack Obama said something. He said, make me do my job. A lot of times we don't, and it's not about the color, because everybody knows that we've been screwed around more by our people sometimes than other people. And so we don't need to get into that. But we need to be involved, and we need to have an agenda. We need to make sure our agenda is carried out as we see it. But you don't need to get mad at another organization that who's on the front line, making sure that they're getting their point across. And if you don't want to do that, just keep it, stay in the kitchen and talk about it. Again, we have, I think, 2 minutes. Start with you, John, and we'll bring it up again. And I'm just so grateful for both of you, man, because I know y'all doing great work. We'll start with you, John.
Politics and the art of compromise, and Representative Potter was talking about this amendment, and it's something that, coalitions have to think about. Do you compromise and get half of something or 100% of nothing? So, this bill is dead in committee, died last time, and those are, some tough choices to be made with this compromise. So, we'll see.
We have to have some further conversation around what Representative Potter is suggesting. I think that there is some merit to what he's suggesting. I'm just careful, again, as a matter of principle, to create another protected class of police officers when black bodies are being shot down like in South Carolina and nobody's saying a word. And part of what's happening now is all across the nation, young people are organizing and making a difference in their community. So if for no other reason, I'm excited about the moment that has been created that's creating movements around the country.
Yeah. But I can say one thing, change has got to come from bottom up,
Absolutely.
Not top down, because it never reaches us. Change has got to come from bottom up. Again, I just want to thank both of y'all. I think the callers for calling in. We'll be back, I think, next month, June the 17th. Also, again, Parks and Rec with with Rashid, with the ping pong tournament, with the tennis and the chess. And I think our kids need to learn to play chess because it teaches them to solve problems. And we don't have to always go to violence. Again, our condolences to the Perkins family and B.B. King. And they're telling me to wrap it up. Thank you, Ivan. And if you can play B.B. King, the thrill is gone.